Welcome to Rustler's Reminiscence, stories of hope, faith, and frontier courage. Let the journey unfold. Sunday put on its clean shirt and still smelled of sweat. The town drifted to the churchyard because habit can pass for faith from far enough away. The bell rang, hymn books opened, and the deacon's voice same one that blesses potlucks took to reading what he called debts and moral correction. Wind combed the dry grass. Hats came off for prayer and never went back on, as if uncovered heads meant uncovered hearts. I stood at the back under the lean cottonwood where my boy's name is chiseled shallow. I hadn't planned to speak, only to get through without tasting whiskey. The deacon read fees for bread and lodging and the sin of being poor in a drought. Year tidy as a laundry list. Then he said a woman's name and called her subject, and benches scraped as men stood to see. They brought her forward the way you'd bring a mule to trade chin high, wrists crossed, dignity made from posture. Her hymn book ribbon hung frayed. She kept a thumb on the verse while eyes weighed her. Their pulpit was a plank with saw marks, like lash scars. A gavel from some dead court lay on it, polished by men who liked the sound of their own order. The deacon announced an indenture temporary, subject to review, as if law could be conjured by a man with no courthouse. To resolve arrears and promote feminine improvement, he added, and a few women bowed so no one could read their faces. Bids started like for a mule. A shopkeeper with butter on his cuffs said $1. A ranch hand who grins at everything said $1.50. A drover studied her teeth with his eyes from where he stood. Each number laid a little more dust on the day. I watched Mira, though I didn't know her name yet, watch the ground, counting ants so she wouldn't count. Men. The gavel cracked once, echoing off headstones like thunder that never rains. The hymn faltered, found itself, faltered again. I don't recall deciding. My mouth got there first. 3, I said. Not 3 in a joke to soften it. Just they. Number like you lay a coin in a game you shouldn't play. Heads turned. The bidders looked relieved the way cowards do when a storm chooses another roof. The deacon's eyebrows climbed. $3, he repeated, and tapped the gavel like a pistol dry firing. Murmurs turned to spittle on the dirt near my boots, not on me. Graveyards keep a kind of manners. He slid a paper across cheap stock, ink already bleeding. His seal shone red as a thumb after a hammer slip. Temporary custodial receipt, he hummed. I put down 3 coins that remembered better years. Their clink sounded like a dare. The gavel fell. Hymn books shut themselves. She didn't look at me until the deacon finally said, Myra. Wind lifted her ribbon and set it down again. He leaned close, breath mint hiding something stronger. You'll return her by sundown, Mr. Hardin, house rules. I folded the paper and tucked it in my vest where I keep what passes for proof. It warmed like a coal. The deputy at the gate studied the clouds. We walked out past the stones, and the eyes me with a receipt that says I paid, her with a hymn book that says she belongs to someone else. We left the church to finish its hymn without us. I kept the gelding steady because haste looks like guilt. She mounted without my hand, hymn book tucked between elbow and ribs like a ledger she wouldn't let go. I'm Mira, she said at last. She didn't ask my name. The deacon had said it enough. I can cook and keep figures, a thin breath. They said virtue keeps accounts better than cash. Her mouth tried to smile, thought better of it. It wasn't the church's idea. Whose, then? Jarrow's. She watched the road. They front for him in daylight with paper, so folks can wash their hands and keep them warm. The deacon's ledger lists expenses. The gang holds the keys. Old sins in new words. Indenture today, leverage tomorrow. She worried the Hymn book with her thumb. My brother, she added, 12. Small. They kept him to make me mind. Said a paper's worth more when it scares you. The road shouldered up between two ridges. Where? I asked. Cottonwoods east of. The dry river. Line shack by the beet field. I thought of the cottonwood where my boy's name was cut too shallow to last. Folks said fever. Nobody said drought. I promised the ground I'd live temperate. Then a man's name does what it does. Jarrow. Dry hinge sound. Years back I rode. Near his crowd and lost a spur. The memory sits heavier than the metal. You don't have to promise, she said. Men promise like they tip hats to the air. I won't promise, I said, and heard the lie. I'll ride. We passed the blacksmiths and the schoolmarms in one breath. Shutters down, a lantern pressed into my hand, the kind of help you can carry. On Main, the deputy balanced his chair and studied his seam, a way to remember the wind and keep your hat on. Paper can hold if somebody stares at it hard, I said. Circuit judge may be a day this way or that. Paper won't keep Jarrow past sundown, she said. They like the dark for the part they call teaching. Those 3 were my last proud ones, I said. But I've got wire and sight lines and a yard that fits my hands. I took the ridge road that keeps you above snake grass and men lying quiet in it. From there my place lays itself, small fence, bell wire, stoop, a dry barrel. You can take the south room, I said. Bolt inside, I'll sit the chair by the door. Until sundown, she said, and made the clock louder. That receipt buys us hours, I said. Let's make them worth more than the price. She moved her mare to ride even. The paper in my vest warmed like a coal I'd pocketed on purpose. Mr. Hardin, she said at last, giving me the title you lend a man when you need him to stand straight. If we bring him home, I won't ask you for anything more. We bring him, I said. I meant it, and I knew what night makes of. Good sentences. We hit the last rise before my ridge. The air smelled of old ash. Myra's mare pricked an ear at a sound I couldn't yet hear. Then I saw it thin and far, a smear of smoke against hard blue, exactly where the cottonwoods argue, with the dry riverbed. I left Myra in the south room with the bolt set and her hymn book by the window. Paper first, I told her, and put the gelding to a fast trot. The justice's office hid behind the feed store. A doorbell gave a ding. Stale ink lived in the air. I need this recognized. I set the receipt on the blotter. Cheap stock, ink feathered, the deacon's seal red and neat. Temporary custodial, it read. The deputy hat off, hair slicked, tapped the page. Then the bell, then the clock with a pencil. Justice ain't in, he said. Riding circuit, back when he's back. The law's here, I said, tapping the ledger. Make it hold. He dragged the book like a blanket. What's to record? That I bought an indenture, and Jarrow's men threatened to reclaim by force. He lifted an eyebrow. Careful with names. I spelled them slow. Jarrow. Deacon Hobb, 2 riders by Limp and Laugh. Affidavit, he muttered, turning the ledger so the pen faced me. The neeb clipped the desk, bell ding, and bled at every comma. I wrote the hour, the seal, the word sundown, and what a man intends to do if pushed. When I signed, the letters looked like a drowning hand had learned to write. He dusted it with sand. Seal's valid, he read, but as marked temporary. His finger anchored the word like it might run. Expires at sundown? I said. Note my request for continuance until the judge arrives, I said, and the risk of violence under my roof. Send a rider now. Rider costs. I slid silver meant for fence staples. He scratched. Rider requisitioned, and I made him add a docket number. Numbers are a poor man's fence, posts you count them. So no one moves your line after dark dot town slid by the window without eyes. Men who usually slapped my shoulder studied their boots. The blacksmith's boy drifted to the door, saw the receipt, paled, and vanished. The schoolmarm crossed with a satchel. Law is a candle that smokes when nobody breathes on it. Copy this. And the docket, I said. He sighed, set a clean sheet, and wrote slow, hand shaking enough to leave a small midnight in one corner. I folded the copy and slid it behind the receipt in my vest. Deacon Hobb met me at the door, collar straight, eyes bright. "Brother Hardin," he said, "house rules are for safety. Fragile souls. You priced one," I said. "All proceeds go to upkeep." "Whose?" He colored then. "Return the subject by sundown and all's square." Subject sat between us like a dead bird. He tried to step in around me. I did not move. I rode to the telegraph where wires sing even without wind and sent short words like nails to the judge's last mark in the county paper and Denture Hobb Yarrow sundown. Threat request review. By the time my gate showed, the sun had slipped a thickness lower. I tucked the copies beneath the loose board under my stoop, the place no one checks because it's too obvious. I tightened the bell wire so a pebble could pass for an army. Myra opened before I could knock. "Well, our names are on a page men will pretend not to see," I said. She looked toward the cottonwoods and then at the clock. I walked the yard like a man measuring his own coffin, counting steps from gate to stoop, from stoop to the rain barrel that hasn't tasted rain in 2 months. The sun had slipped to that dust-amber angle that makes a liar of clocks. First, the dinner bell wire, a bright, mean note run low along the fence posts, taut as a tendon. I tied it at knee height where a horse would miss it, but a boot would not, fixed to a bell under the E. A tug would make our bell speak when our eyes were busy. I oiled the hinges till they sighed, checked the latch where my thumb knows every splinter, and cleared a clean lane from the stoop to the cottonwoods. I set a broom handle across 2 nails for a bar and moved the barrel to thicken our cover. In my head I drew a plain diagram, posts, trough, stoop, one small body's mapped to hold. Neighbors came like weather felt before they were seen. The schoolmarm, Miss Elkins, walked up with a lantern held like a book, the wire handle threaded through her fingers as if there were words on it. She didn't look at Myra behind the south room curtain. "I don't approve of auctions," she said. "I do approve of light." She set the lantern on my stoop, wick trimmed proper, glass polished. "If a man knocks me down for it, you tell him the curriculum requires illumination." She left with her spine straight as a ruler. The blacksmith came next, soot in the unenough lines of his knuckles, and leaned a coal shovel by the door without meeting my eyes. "Iron's iron," he said, and went away fast. Across the road a curtain twitched and went still. Some folks pray behind shutters. Some pray by walking up and putting metal where it's needed. Inside. I laid the receipt on the mantel and pinned it with $3 under a smooth river stone, so it couldn't blow into the stove and make liars of us all. The handwriting looked braver than I felt. Myra stood at the south window where cotton lint gathers, hymn book flat on her palms, as if she meant to pass it around to the first soul who knocked. "Who will come?" she asked. "Some," I said. "Some will shudder and pray to be mistaken for air." She watched the yard. "Children listen to bell wire," she said. "Men listen to coins and what they can be made to do." I showed her where to sit, so the window frame cut the view and left only the gate. "I'll speak if they're the kind you can speak to," she said. "And if not?" I set the hymn book nearer the latch. "Then the bell speaks first." By full dusk, the yard felt like a stage whose curtain had gone up without warning. The wind brought mesquite and old ash. Even the fence remembered heat. I walked the bell wire once more, plucked it like a nerve, and heard it answer in the eaves. I set my chair 2 steps inside the door where the hinge shadow wouldn't give me away, and leaned the coal shovel within reach. At the gate I hung my boy's jacket, the one too small to wear even the year before he fevered, not as bait, but as a reminder to myself about stakes. I tamped a heel mark flat, left another proud, and let the path read confusing to anyone who tried to track it by lantern. The sky went the color of old tin. The breeze combed the wire to a faint hum only a house can hear. I set the chair, too. Steps deeper, checked the bar, and laid 2 tin cups on the path where a careless heel would kiss and clatter. A string of dry beans under the sill would whisper before boots could. I counted breaths to measure the distance to the gate and listened for a sound that wasn't wind learning our wire. The pebble that kissed the bell wire wasn't wind. A rider slid out of the mesquite, hat low. I stood on the stoop with the coal shovel. Mira waited in the south window, her knuckles and the hymn book ribbon showing. He reined at the gate, eyes measuring the bright line of wire. Message from Gerald. Terms for peace. He tossed a small thing that flashed and landed by my boot. A bone button cut with a crooked star. Myra's breath fogged the glass. "David's," she said. "Say." "It," I told him. "That paper's a Sunday hat on a scarecrow. Sundown comes, it blows away. Return the woman by nightfall, and the boy walks home. Miss it, and night teaches." I reached in my vest for what I'd kept too long. A broken spur, the rowel hub stamped J with a slash Jarrow's brand. I tossed it back. It rang once and lay grinning in the dust. "You rode close once," he said. "Close enough to lose that." "Close enough to learn," I said. "No one wants marks on a child. He's small, easy to scare," he went on. "He'll remember who held him." I said, "And who priced his sister?" "Talk to Hob about pricing," he said. "We just collect." The latch clicked. Myra opened the door a hand's width. Light took the star and the button. "Where?" she asked. He blinked at being answered. "Line shack by the beet field," he said. "Cottonwoods east. Dry river behind. One man posted." "You left tracks on the river bank," I told him. "Sundown," he repeated. "This town knows the rule. Evenings when property returns proper. You can ride back and recite it," I said. "Tell Jarrow his hinges squeak. I'm coming." Through them. His eyes took in the shovel, the lantern, the small jacket I'd hung at the gate. He touched 2 fingers to his hat and turned. Mira crouched and lifted the warm button. "He carved this," she said. "Said we could find our way by it if the road vanished." I set the spur in my palm until the J warmed. "Am I fighting?" "Jarrow," I asked the room, my boy's coat, "or the man I almost was?" "Both," she said. No anger, just a ledger read aloud. "You paid $3 for paper," she added, glancing at the mantel where I'd pinned the receipt beneath. A river stone and coins. "Pay the rest by writing." Light turned iron. The bell wire hummed a small warning I felt in my teeth. I checked the bar, the beans under the sill, the chair. I tucked the receipt's copy behind the mantel and touched the coin's little suns. That had bought us hours. Miss Elkins's lantern waited. "Take it," Myra said. "Light can be quieter than fear if you tend it." She stitched the button inside her sleeve. I dropped the spur where the rider had stood. "Let a name lie with its owner." "If I'm not back by dark," I started. "Don't say that," she cut in. "Say what you mean." She stood in the doorway, hymn book like a shield. "Bring him home, Mr. Hardin," she said. I saddled. The gelding blew once and steadied. Pain climbed behind my ribs. I rolled the lantern wick low, tied it at my horn, and felt the bell wire breathe the house's last word. I took the dry creak that keeps a horse quiet, lantern wick pinched low under my hat brim. Cottonwoods leaned over the riverbed, leaves telling water's story, though none ran. I kept the plan small enough for one breath. Kick a stone, whistle. Once take the boy, fold a man down without waking the night, and leave under crows. The beat rose combed toward the line shack. One slit of lamplight cut the door. I tied off in shadow, matched the gelding's breath with mine, and slid low through scrub. At 10 paces I nudged a pebble into cane. It wrote a dry sentence. A shoulder. Turned. Boots came, casual the man-owning evening. When the door opened, I set 2 fingers to my teeth and sent a whistle thin as wire. A small shape unstuck from the darkness inside. The lamp showed elbows like knots. He paused at the sill like a rabbit learning fence. I lowered my palm. He crept the same. The guard felt air go light behind him and turned. I met him shoulder first, the way my captain taught a man who can't spare blood or thunder. We grappled, like 2 coats correcting their fit. I found his wrist and turned it. Breath left him. I eased him to dirt and slid his pistol free to keep him honest. The boy came on the second whistle. "David?" I asked, softer than the word. He nodded. Jaw set harder than 12 years deserve. Close, he smelled of lamp oil and potatoes, and sleep held at gunpoint. "Sister?" "Waiting." I put a water skin in his hands and made him sip. "Can you run quiet?" His look said, "Don't insult me. Take my hand anyway." We let the beat rose shut like pages and slipped into the riverbed. I put him up first and tied the lantern to the horn, wick a ghost. If I say slide, slide. He nodded once. We kept to the river's old bends, where sand keeps secrets. A man hears best after nothing. If they follow, he whispered, we make noise where they expect it and stay silent where they don't. I set Dot at the ford where even a dry river pretends at depth. I swung down and led. I brushed our trail with a willow, then brushed the brush marks with my boot, a lie that holds. A coyote stitched a complaint on the far bank. David slipped. I had him by the elbow before fear could tell him what to think. "You whistle like my pa," he said. "Then listen like he did," I said, and the ache behind my ribs eased. We climbed a sandy tongue. My place shows by feel. The bell wires hum, the stoop, a dry barrel's dark. I set the gate to a trot a man can live through. We dipped, too. The river again, to lose what we'd made. Sand took us in as if paid to forget, and there I saw them, prints beside ours fresh enough to shine. Not the guards too heavy, too patient. A rider had come down careful and walked his horse to think. I touched the cold where iron pressed and came away damp. David felt me stop. "Are we safe?" "Not yet," I said. I erased what I could with the willow and took the line that would carry us home fastest, and I knew straight as a lantern for whoever shadowed us. You don't always get to choose between safe and seen. Sometimes you choose quick and make your stand where the ground knows your name. We hit the yard ahead of the night like a letter slid under a door. I swung David down, Myra's hands already there, and the bolt went home soft. I set the chair inside, but chose the threshold. The bell wire thrummed in my teeth, as if the house were asking what kind of man I planned to be. Lantern glow breathed on the eave. Leather creaked in the road. Horses lined up like fence posts, driven into poor soil 6 at first, then 8, then more jarrow, letting numbers do the talking. I loosened my jaw and planted my boots where the stoop boards show their knots. The $3 on the mantel seemed to ring without moving, the river stone holding the receipt that names what we mean to keep. The spokesman from the churchyard eased forward and studied the wire with the smile men save for children's toys. Property returns to its owner by nightfall, he called, pronouncing nightfall like an ordinance. Windows up the street closed with the politeness of cowards. I let my voice carry to them anyway. Paper says different, I answered. Affidavit. Filed. Writer sent. Judge rides. He smirked. Paper's a Sunday coat. Weather's Monday. He pinched a match as if lighting another man's house were a civic duty. I bent and found the dinner bell lying with my fingers and tugged it once. The note flew up our wall and went hunting porches. A curtain lifted. A door cracked. Miss Elkins's lantern on my stoop pulsed brighter, and the glow climbed my eaves like courage. Gerald came only then, not in a rush, just that steady forward a bad river keeps when it knows the banks by heart. He held his horse where my fence throws its shadow and spoke past his man. Bring the boy out, he said. He walks away. The woman mounts. Sundown stays tidy. Tidies for ledgers, I told him, tapping the vest where the receipt warmed like a hidden ember. This here's a record. The spokesman nudged his mount to nose the wire. I shifted one step, and his knee brushed the pair of tin cups. I'd set. They kissed and clattered. The horse shied. His elbow swept wide and smacked my lantern. The globe rang. The wick flared hard and then steadied to a small, obedient flame. The first shove came shallow a rider, pressing the picket with his boot to test a man more than a fence. I answered by ringing the wire again. The bell's cry made every lie sound thin. Look at you, Jarrow said, almost kindly, as if I were a stray calf that had learned a trick. You used to ride loose. I thought of the broken spur I had left in the dust by the gate and kept my eyes off it. I ride held now, I said, by names. From inside, Myra's voice came clear and calm. David is not a bargain. The boy's breath made a white oval on the sash. Along the street, silhouettes detached from Porch's blacksmith first, soot still in his knuckles. Then Mrs. Mendez with a hammer big as purpose. Then, to my surprise, the banker's clerk with a ledger he could swear on. The spokesman lifted another match with priestly care. I set the coal shovel's edge lightly across his wrist and shook my head. He lowered it because even a bully knows when a town is practicing its voice. Jarrow watched those faces lean into themselves, then glanced uphill as if remembering where words are supposed to mean something. I tugged the bell wire once more and let the note hang over the road like a verdict. The second bell rolled from the church hill and settled on the street like a verdict. Horses blinked. Men sat taller. Miss Elkins had found the rope her rhythm patient as chalk. A boy ran a rifle to his mother. The blacksmith's wife set her. Shovel by my door, iron answering iron. Jarrow watched the hill as if the bell had insulted his arithmetic. Windows cracked. Rifle slid into the dusk. No shots the geometry of refusal. We'll come back in dark that don't sing, Jarrow sighed. Not tonight. He looked up and down the street and saw faces he'd mispriced. Mrs. Mendez with her hammer. The clerk with his ledger raised like testimony. The blacksmith with tongs and a patience that bends iron. Paper says different, I told him, tapping my vest where the affidavit warmed like a tame coal. Judge rides. Judge drools ink, the spokesman sneered and leaned to set his horse on my wire. I twitched the line. The bell spoke. His mount shied, match fell, and he learned to keep his hands where light could see them. Hoofbeats different from a posse laid themselves on the air. 2, then 4. Harness creak, a wheel complaining. A wagon crested the road at the church lane lanterns boxed, seal bright bailiff off the right wheel, shotgun held like punctuation. Our deputy rode behind, older for the choice he'd finally made. The bell quit as the team checked. The circuit judge climbed down. "Mr. Hardin," he said, "your rider found me at Carter's Wash. Order likes preparation." His glance took in the bell wire, the tin cups, the jacket at the gate, and the lantern that refused to misbehave. He opened a leather folder that smelled like rain we never get. "On sworn affidavit and prior reports," he said, "warrants. Issue for false instrument, unlawful indenture, and conspiracy to extort under color of church." The bailiff took Hobbs' wrists as if fitting him for cuffs he could pray in. The deacon swallowed and stopped looking like a building. Gerald narrowed his eyes, weighing cost. He had counted this town and found it heavier than last week. He spat away from my wire. "We'll see your paper," he said. "Today," the judge answered, "and you'll answer it next circuit if found." Rifle stayed low at the windows. Gerald read the street, tugged his reins, and chose to be tomorrow's. Trouble. His line rolled back the way it had come, not a route, just a choice he'd claim was his. I let my breath find air. Mara pressed her palm to the receipt under the river stone and 3 coins. The lantern glass held our faces, the boy's jaw. Set, the ribbon frayed, the woman who would not be priced. Dawn unstitched the dark above the beat fields. Miss Elkins came down from the belfry, with chalk on her fingers. The judge stepped inside, touched the mantel where the coins pinned our paper, and lifted another sheet. "Further warrants tied to a larger ring," he said. "Names you won't like, Hardin." We watched the light take the room, the mantel. The $3, the red seal, and understood that paper can bruise men if a town agrees to read it. Thanks for riding with us through another tale from the Old West. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. More adventures are waiting on the trail ahead. See you next time.